On November 22nd, 1963, three shots were fired in downtown Dallas, Texas, that truly changed the course of the world itself, not only of America, but changed the course of world events. President John F. Kennedy, 60 years ago today, was making a campaign appearance in Dallas, Texas, the Dallas Fort Worth area, and around 12:30 p.m. Central Standard Time, his open-air presidential motorcade was making its way through downtown Dallas through Dealey Plaza when three shots were fired and killing President Kennedy and also striking Texas Governor John Connally, who was riding in the front seat of the presidential limousine. Less than an hour later, John F. Kennedy, the nation's 35th president, was pronounced dead at Parkland Memorial Hospital. Lee Harvey Oswald was shortly arrested soon thereafter, and he was assassinated only hours later after being led out of the Dallas police station a couple of days after President Kennedy was shot. Now, this is one of the most recognizable and most famous, tragically, one of the most famous assassinations in American history, and it has led to a wide range and almost industry unto itself of conspiracy theorists and investigative reporters who have been trying for decades to determine whether or not there was a possible wider conspiracy to assassinate the youngest man ever elected president of the United States in U.S. history. In time for the 60-year commemoration of this tragic event, Knott Laboratory, a Colorado-based forensic engineering and visualization company, and we're joined with Stanley Stoll, who is CEO of Knott Laboratory, recently did a 3D high-definition recreation of Dealey Plaza on that fateful day and in that exact hour that shows a little bit of a discrepancy in what the Warren Commission says was a single assassination or a single assassin theory who fired three shots at the presidential motorcade. One of the bullets, the so-called magic bullet, I believe, is believed by the Warren Commission to have struck the president and exited Kennedy's body and then struck Governor John Connally, who was riding in the front seat. Now, Stanley Stoll Company, Knott Laboratory, has digitally recreated using photographs, films, and other evidence to create a 3D digital scan of Dealey Plaza. So my first question is, what did you find out?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of analysis to go from what you just presented to the findings that we came to. But to shortcut to those findings, what we found is that single bullet theory, or you mentioned the magic bullet that is thrown around a lot of times, is not plausible with what we discovered. So when we went through and we scanned the entire scene out there, we created a digital point cloud. So we really reconstructed that scene, presidential limousine, and all of that back into, a very scientifically accurate reconstruction of that scene. And I believe it's the most scientific reconstruction of that to date. And when we go to that depth, and then when we start looking at the alignments, the trajectories of these bullets and so forth, and the entrance and exit wounds of both the president and Governor Connally, the alignment of those entrance exit wounds and Oswald's position in the sixth floor of the depository doesn't align. So I think you have a video that you're going to show of this, but in there's a green line and a red line, and the green line is the trajectory of the bullet entrance and exit wounds of President Kennedy and going back to Oswald's positions, and the red line is the entrance and exit wounds in Governor Connally, and you'll see how those lines are not parallel, and you'll also see the other piece is that the Governor Conley is sitting closer to the outside of the vehicle, closer to the passenger side of the vehicle to make the alignments work. So for us to scientifically get the entrance wound of Governor Conley to align somewhat with the exit wound of President John F. Kennedy, you have to slide Governor Conley towards the inside of the vehicle to make that alignment work. And that's where the science deviated from the Warren Commission's report. So we don't think that one bullet was capable of causing those both of those wounds to the president and to John F. Kennedy and to Governor Conley.
Now, before we show the video to our viewers here on this edition of Political Update with Atlanta News First, I've watched the video many times that your company sent out, as well as a lot of our investigative reporters here. Tell us how you were able to recreate Dealey Plaza, the presidential motorcade, Governor Connolly and President Kennedy with such detail. What evidence did you use to create this digital scan?
Sure. So first off, we've been working on this since like 2018. And we scanned Dealey Plaza back then. We've more recently scanned it again, and even just the quality of the scan data that's progressed in the past 5 years has even improved the amount of data that we have. But so what happens is we go out and we scan it. This is a survey piece of equipment. You go out, you set it up, it's on a tripod, and what it does is it spins around and it's pinging lasers off of everything that it can see. And so every time it comes and pings a point, then we create an XYZ coordinate of that exact point. So you have the buildings, you have the signs, the roadways, the curbs, everything that we go on. So you set the scanner up in one location, run it around, it goes around in a 360 degree, collects all those points. Now you move the scanner down the way, 20 yards, 50 yards, whatever. You're going to cover some of what you've already scanned, and then you're going to scan new. So in our process, we went through and we scanned, I think there's 36 scans that we put together to create the entire point cloud, which is basically Dealey Plaza and those surrounding buildings. From that point, you have the present day digital model, a digital twin of the scene. And now we start to put it back into history. So now you take the historical photographs, and there's 25 photographs, something like that, and there's about the frames that are in the Zapruder film, the individual frames that you're taking and putting back. So you place those photographs back into that digital model to where you're projecting through onto the point cloud. So what happens is you're establishing a XYZ coordinate for the individual pieces that you see in the photos. We now have an XYZ coordinate for those pieces. And to talk to the accuracy of this, when the team was first going through and analyzing this, the roadway did not align. And what we found throughout the process was that there's overlays. There's been a pavement, that's been added to the roadway. So, it was an inch or two that we had to take the roadway down to go back to historical accuracy of the scene at that time. We had to put lampposts back in place. We had to put the sign back in place that's in the Zapruder film that was blocking many of the
trees. Did you take account into the fact that maybe some of the trees weren't as large back then as they are now?
Absolutely. So we understand the foliage is going to grow, it's going to change, maybe even be replaced. So those things are going to change. But those hard elements, we can put those back in, and the ones that didn't change, the curbs, the buildings themselves, those are all the accurate ones that you can put back in. So once you have the scene, now you're looking at this from all of these different historical photographs, and now you put the presidential limousine back in there as well. And you run that frame by frame and put it back into its exact location. When you put the limousine in exact location, you're also putting the president and Governor Conley into their exact positions. So it's a culmination of all of these photographs that you're overlaying with an incredibly accurate point cloud of the scene, and that's what we're using to develop the scene as it was at that time. Exactly when these shots were fired.
Well, we've been talking about this amazing digital scan that has been developed by Knott Laboratory based in Colorado, but also with offices around the nation, including here in Atlanta. We're going to show that film, and we'll be back to continue this fascinating conversation on the 60th anniversary of President John F. Kennedy's assassination. That was the video that we've been talking about with Stanley Stoll, who is the CEO of Knott Laboratory based in Colorado with offices all across the United States, including right here in Atlanta. So what kind of conclusions can we draw from this newly released digital scan? And how does what your company has developed, how does it differ from the tons of evidence and other analysis that has occurred over the past 6 decades since Kennedy's assassination? What makes your results different than what we've seen so far?
So what you're seeing in the video is first high level. You're looking at how we lined up those photographs. And so if you want to look at those photographs and understand the accuracy of it, when those photographs are put into that point cloud, you're looking at the lines that come out of it. You're looking at the curve that comes out of it. You're looking at the lines of the building. And that's the validation process to know that we have those photographs aligned perfectly with the scene. And that requires lens correction. At the time, there's lens correction, there's curvature of the lens. So you have to pull that out of the photographs to make sure that you have a flat image that's going on to the point cloud. So all of that. So all of the first part of that video is showing the accuracy of how those photographs are overlaid over the point cloud to have that piece of it. What is different from our analysis, what we're presenting today in reference to the historical context, is the horizontal alignment of Governor Conley and the entrance and exit wounds of that bullet trajectory. So when you look at the green line that's shown in that video, that's entrance wound in the back of President Kennedy's back, and that's from autopsy reports and everything there, and it's an exit wound in the front of his throat right here. It's those two wounds put back to Oswald's position in the book depository. That's a straight line on those pieces. And I understand the bullet trajectory, there's some curvature and all that. I'm not a ballistics expert by any means, but just drawing that line, we have those pieces. Now let's look at the entrance and exit wounds for Governor Conley. Governor Conley's entrance wound is in his lower right armpit, or back shoulder, and it exits right underneath his chest down here, and then ultimately goes through his wrist and ultimately embeds in his left thigh. Though, so looking at those alignments, that's shown as the red line on our visualization, those are coming in at another angle. So if that was the same bullet that were to travel straight through JFK, first off, it has to come over to the right and then change and come in at a right to left angle. So it's coming in kind of straight. Now it has to jump to the right and come in from a right to left angle through Governor Conley. So the change in the trajectory of those bullets is one thing that we found different. The other thing was, to make those entry wounds align, you have to slide Governor Conley in towards the interior of the vehicle. If you do that, now you can make the alignment work, but that's not where he was sitting in the vehicle at the time. And we went through a sequence of positioning Governor Conley, you know, throughout the motorcade. So every photograph that we could, it was almost like you know, Disney, go back to Disney, where you look at screenshot after screenshot after screenshot of where was Governor Conley? Did he ever move over? And then specifically on the Zapruder film 210 and 225, where was he located? And he's always located. So our analysis shows, in I think it's in Z210, that he's 6 inches to the right of where he would have to be for those bullets to align. In 225, he was 10 inches, and I might have those reversed, but regardless, it's 6 and 10 inches on those two frames when we look at where he would have had to slide to the interior to make that alignment work. So it's really the new information that's being presented here is the accuracy on the models for where John F. Kennedy is located, and where Governor Conley is located in that limousine, and then whether those angles on those trajectories can align. And horizontally, we can't get those to align in a scientific model based on the modern technology that we have today. And this is being used. I mean, this is being used. This is gaining popularity in law enforcement investigations. It's, you know, there's 30 some odd cases that are going on in our company alone where this technology being applied. It's absolute cutting edge modern stuff that is being applied to, you know, officer involved shootings, any type of shooting reconstruction, because of how powerful it is.
Given the immense public, national, international, worldwide interest in continuing interest in the assassination of President Kennedy, does your data support the theory that there was a second shooter?
I don't want to go that far. I want to stick to the science. The part that we were asked, you know, we were retained by John Orr back in the day, who gave us all of this information, gave us access to the National Archives, to the autopsy reports and the photographs and things like that. What we were asked to do is analyze those two shots. What we can say is that it's two different bullets. So whether that means that there's two shooters, I don't know. What now needs to happen is the world that's evaluating this, and there's lots of people that have extreme interest in this case. What they now need to do is take this information and consider this and use this as another piece of science in their hypotheses to evaluate, you know, which bullets were which and could they have come from it. We'll continue to analyze this. We have the model built and can continue to develop and evaluate hypotheses on this. We just haven't done that so far. We wanted to look at, is this one bullet that as presented in the Warren Commission report that caused both of those wounds to President Kennedy and Governor Conley? And our answer is no. And, you know, based on the science that we have.
Can you definitively say that one of the bullets that struck President Kennedy did indeed come from the 6th floor of the Texas School Book Depository, based on your bullet projections and the trajectory of your research through your scans? Can you definitively say that the president was struck from a bullet that was fired from the School Book Depository?
The alignment of the bullet that struck him in the back and the throat aligns with where Oswald was positioned in that 6th floor of the depository. Yes.
Because, you know, we've heard all sorts of theories. There was a second shooter. There was something coming. Shots were heard in the area of the grassy knoll, et cetera, which I'm sure you're incredibly familiar with your research. So final thoughts, where do you think the nation should go from here in terms of, the further investigation? Does this warrant further investigation? We all know that there's been tremendous amounts of research, countless books, countless videos, countless hours devoted to this case. Where do we go from here, in your opinion?
Yeah, I mean, just coming at this from a forensic science perspective, this is new information that has not been I don't know that this has been out there at all. It's in a very small segment, if it does exist. And the prevailing information as recent as the 50th anniversary does not have this information. And so in any scientific investigations, you're always taking the evidence and trying to develop hypotheses, and then you're using the scientific evidence to rule out, any theories that don't match the science. So right now, this is a piece of scientific evidence that we can contribute to the industry and say, consider this, because now you have to process any of those theories, multiple shooters, direction of shots, whether it's front to back. It's endless. There's lots of information, and even lots of information that's coming out here right around the 60th anniversary from all kinds of different perspectives. So now everybody needs to take this as a piece of scientific evidence and evaluate that against the hypotheses that everybody has and see if they match, because it's very scientifically accurate. Now start to evaluate those additional, because all we did was just a single bullet. We only looked at that alignment. So now go on to the next step. Now start looking at all the pieces of evidence, where those bullet fragments and everything. It really needs to be evaluated. And now there's another tool out there that can be used to help evaluate these different hypotheses on what happened 60 years ago.
And who knows what new technologies will evolve over the next several years. When the 70th anniversary comes around, we may have something entirely new that adds to the discussion. We want to thank Stanley Stoll, who is CEO of Knott Laboratory, based in Colorado, but with offices throughout the United States, including here in Atlanta, as we pause and reflect on the 60th anniversary of the assassination of President John F. Kennedy and the days that followed, that threw the American political environment into a chaos unlike it has ever experienced in the 20th century. Thanks to all of you for watching this special edition of Political Update here on Atlanta News First and AtlantaNewsFirst.com.